Life After Parental Alienation by J. Claude McDaniel. Welcome to Life After Parental Alienation, Part 3.
They take pieces of the truth, just enough to make it believable, and twist them until they barely resemble what actually happened. Then they layer in the accusations, the justifications, the excuses for things that should never need excuses. And they deliver it with precision. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's calm reasoning. But the most effective tool? Emotion. The teardrops. The trembling voice. The handkerchief in hand like a prop in a perfectly rehearsed scene. What looks like pain is often strategy. What feels like vulnerability is often control. And people believe it. Because it looks real. Because it sounds real. Because no one wants to question someone who appears to be hurting. But behind it, something else is happening. A narrative is being built. Carefully. Repeatedly. Until it takes hold. Until it replaces your voice. Until it becomes the only version anyone hears. And by the time you realize what's been done, you're no longer part of the story. You've been written out of it. How narcissistic personalities weaponize children. This is where it crosses a line that's hard to even put into words. Because it's not just manipulation anymore. It's weaponization. Your children aren't just influenced, they're used. The same tactics, lies, distortions, emotional performances, are applied over and over again, but this time with a specific target, the way your children see you. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's slow, methodical, patient. Year by year, piece by piece, your image is chipped away. Respect turns into doubt. Doubt turns into distance. Distance turns into rejection. Until one day, they're gone. But one person alone can't pull that off. It takes a network. It takes people willing, whether knowingly or not, to carry the message forward. To repeat it. To validate it. To give it weight. And that's where it cuts even deeper. Because sometimes, those people are your own family. People you trusted. People who knew you. People who should have questioned what they were hearing, but didn't. In my case, even close relatives became part of it. They believed it. They spread it. Some helped carry out the narrative like it was truth. The so-called flying monkeys. The sympathizers. And often, they're not chosen at random. They're recruited. Picked apart based on their own weaknesses. Their own past. Their own guilt. Because if someone already carries something they're not proud of, something unresolved, it becomes easier to pull them in. Easier to align them. Easier to make them feel justified in turning against you. I saw it happen. One relative had already crossed lines, had already mishandled a sibling's estate. That history didn't distance them from the alienator. It made them easier to recruit. Easier to convince. Easier to use. So I cut them off. Not just for what they had done before. But for what they became. Because by then, it wasn't just betrayal. It was participation. Why children sometimes adopt the alienator's narrative. This one cuts in a way that's hard to explain. Because you don't even get to defend yourself. As part of the alienation, your children don't come to you with questions. They don't sit down and say, "This is what I heard, help me understand." They just decide. And you're left in the dark. The only way you find out is by accident. A comment overheard. A piece of truth slipping through the cracks just before everything shuts down completely. That's how it happened for me. I heard that my son believed I had embarrassed his mother publicly, over and over again. That I had humiliated her when I spoke. And because of that, I wasn't allowed to give a toast at his wedding. Think about that. A lifetime of being a father, and you're silenced at one of the most important moments of his life because of something that never even happened. Because the truth? I spoke about his mother twice. Twice in over 30 years. Once at our wedding, joyfully. Once at my daughter's graduation, respectfully. That's it. So how does something so small become something so damaging? It has to be rebuilt. Twisted. Reframed. Repeated. And the conditions have to be right. Distance helps. Isolation helps. The COVID-19 period created the perfect gap, no direct conversations, no chance to correct anything in real time. Then the story changes. Details get removed. Context disappears. Intent is rewritten. Even though my ex-wife and her partner at the time had seen my speech beforehand, had approved it, that part somehow vanishes. Even though the humor I used was aimed at myself, that gets flipped into something else entirely. And then comes the final layer. The emotion. The tears. The hurt. The handkerchief. The performance that makes the story feel undeniable. So now your child isn't just hearing a claim. They're feeling it. And once that happens, logic doesn't stand a chance. So they choose. Not because they know the truth, but because they've been given a version of it that feels more real than anything you're allowed to say. And you never even get the chance to answer it. The friends, relatives, and institutions that enable alienation. This doesn't stay between two people. It spreads. Because for someone to be fully turned against you, a child, an ex-partner, a colleague, there has to be more than just lies. There has to be a system. A psychological operation that pulls others in and puts them to work. That's where the flying monkeys come in. They're not random. They're chosen. A flying monkey is anyone the narcissist can recruit, someone willing to repeat the story, carry the message, enforce the distance. They spread the rumors. They deliver the coldness. They help build the wall between you and everyone else. But the most dangerous part? They believe they're right. They believe they're helping. They see the narcissist as honest, as justified, sometimes even as the victim. And once they believe that, they stop questioning anything. So the damage multiplies. It's not just the narcissist anymore, it's an entire network acting in alignment. A chorus of voices reinforcing the same story until it becomes the only story anyone hears. And it doesn't just destroy the target. It damages everyone it touches. Friends are divided. Families fracture. Children are pulled into roles they were never meant to play. Business relationships collapse under the weight of whispered narratives and quiet judgments. Even the ones who stand on the sidelines, the silent bystanders, aren't untouched. Because witnessing manipulation and doing nothing doesn't leave you unchanged. It pulls you in. It makes you part of it. And by the time anyone realizes what's really happening, the lines are already drawn. And you're standing alone on the other side.
And now we move on to the subject of the fight for your child.
The struggle for fairness in custody systems. This is where it stops being just emotional and becomes a fight, a real one. In my case, it was massive, overwhelming. And I learned quickly that if I didn't start protecting myself, documenting everything, I was going to lose more than just time. I was going to lose my children. The warning signs were there even before the divorce. You could feel it in the way people looked at you. Neighbors who once spoke freely suddenly shifted. Conversations changed. Distance crept in. Do I blame them? No. Because they weren't seeing the truth, they were seeing what they were fed. Carefully crafted stories. Emotional performances. Tears. Accusations. The same pattern repeated until it became believable. Even the people closest to the situation weren't immune. Some enabled behavior they didn't fully understand, excusing absences, overlooking inconsistencies, because the narrative they were given made it all seem justified. They didn't know they were being used. Keeping records and evidence. So I started building my defense. Not emotionally, but factually. I documented everything. Every dollar spent. Every receipt. Every transaction. Food, baby formula, household supplies, I kept it all. Statements, receipts, organized, preserved. A paper trail that couldn't be argued away. We had separate credit cards tied to shared accounts, which made it easier to show exactly what I contributed. Every canceled check from our joint accounts, especially the ones used to fund the business we built together, I kept those too. That same business, the one we both poured ourselves into, became one of the biggest demands in the divorce. Nothing was off limits. I kept daily logs. Where she went. When she left. Whether the children were with her or not. And that's when I started to see it happening. The shift. My children were still young, but something was changing. Subtle at first. Then more obvious. A distance that didn't belong there. You feel it before you can prove it. And you start to understand? They're hearing things. Maybe not directly. Maybe not in ways anyone could easily point to. But children absorb what's around them. Tone. Tension. Suggestion. And it stays. So I kept writing. Recording. Building something solid in the middle of something designed to make you look unstable. And in the end, those records mattered. They were used in psychiatric mediation. They were passed between attorneys. They became more than just notes, they became proof that I wasn't what I was being made out to be. Because in this battlefield, truth doesn't speak for itself. You have to prove it exists. Trying to hold on to something that's already being taken from you. Trying to communicate with someone who has already decided to erase you. Is exhausting in a way that words don't fully capture. You reach out. You try to talk. You send messages. You look for anything, any sign, that there's still a connection left to hold on to. And you get nothing. Or worse than nothing. You get silence. A silence so loud it drowns everything else out. In my case, it went beyond coldness. It crossed into something almost unreal. While I was gone, even my personal space was invaded, my bedroom furniture moved, rearranged, as if I no longer existed there. As if I had already been removed. And inside the home, nothing. No conversation. No acknowledgement. Just a void where communication used to be. You start to realize, it's not accidental. The story being told outside the home has to be maintained inside it. The silence becomes part of the narrative. A tool. A reinforcement. Something that makes their version of reality feel consistent, controlled. Even if it means damaging the children in the process. Because they see it. They feel it. The tension. The absence. The emotional instability. And when words do come, they aren't conversations. They're explosions. Cursing. Accusations. Posturing. Sharp, chaotic bursts of anger that don't resolve anything, they just leave damage behind. And sometimes you wonder, was that for you? Or was it for the audience? When the fight takes everything from you, this is where it starts to take a toll. Not just emotionally, but physically, financially, mentally. I was never someone who thrived on confrontation. And with a narcissist, it doesn't matter how calm you are, how rational you try to be. There is no resolution. No middle ground. No understanding. Every argument is one-sided. A loop. A trap. Designed not to solve anything, but to exhaust you. So, you learn. You walk away. Even when they follow. Even when the noise continues. Even when they push, provoke, escalate, you step back because engaging only feeds it. And eventually, they move on. Not because it's over. But because they've found a new audience. Someone else to tell the story to. Their attorney. Their supporters. Their flying monkeys. Anyone willing to listen and believe. And the cycle continues. Just without you in the room. So you do the only thing you can do to protect yourself. You document it. You write it down. Every incident. Every outburst. Every moment that feels like it could be twisted later into something it wasn't. Because at some point, your memory isn't enough. You'll need proof that what you lived through actually happened. And that you weren't the one who caused it. This ends. Part 3. Please like and subscribe. For future parts.